welcome to our week. Welcome to Marilyn once again. And well, we said it would happen, and it's happening. We've got to go back to vapes and what is being done on the sly. Latest news on this one, Marilyn?
Well, the drug dealers are filling the vapes with spice, which one dose of that can be a killer. All sorts of different noxious potions and lotions in it. And these are, again, yet the ones that are being sold online, actually. They're targeting children on Snapchat and other social media sites. So you're not having the pop-up shops or the corner shops. This is almost like under the radar on Snapchat. And children are passing out and being like zombies. There's one drug they put in it, which is THC, I think it's called, and it's a psycho drug that goes in with cannabis, and it does make you like a zombie. It makes you vomit, it gives you diarrhea, you pass out, children are going into hospital, and you know, a heavy dose of spice can kill you. And these, as I say, are being sold on social media. It's a nightmare. And I had a call from a school this morning up north where 2 children have been accessed in this way and are currently in hospital, because I send when I get information like this, I send it to all my database to say warn parents, and it's just awful because once they're on it, it's very addictive, highly addictive, this THC, whatever it's called, that goes in it. And so, of course, that's the way they catch them, isn't it? They give them a dose of it, and if it doesn't kill them, they're very quickly hooked. It's absolutely criminal.
It is. And let me say at this stage, I am, as usual, with many things, smacked about the gob because you've mentioned social media. Why isn't there an authority like, if you wish, Ofcom?
Well, this is it.
Well, that will ring up Snapchat or whatever and say, wait a minute, this is wrong. Take it down immediately, or else.
That's exactly what
nothing is done.
Nothing's ever done. And my fear was when the online safety bill came out and it was going to be Ofcom that was going to deal with that, I thought, oh, here we go, soft sell, no one's going in there, it's got no teeth, because the online safety bill was signed off by the King in November. So that's November, December, January, February. We're 4 months now. So that should have been an immediate reaction. Oh my gosh, they're getting to the kids through Snapchat. Why not? Why has that? And I put that out on X. I put a message out saying, where's Ofcom in all this then? Where is it? I mean, it's like the Brianna, the transgender case. I mean, the online safety bill hadn't come in then when that happened, but I'm not so sure it would be as any effect now. That's the problem. We haven't seen any cases coming through the tunnel that says because of the online safety bill, this, that, and the other has happened.
Right, I've got a left of field ball to play on all this, because it's just been announced that there's been another shooting in America. Well, yeah. Well, actually, this was just one caught in a church. Gun, bang, bang, etc. last Sunday. And the person caught was not well, as many of them aren't, and was of a transgender nature, who'd obviously got a thing about things. Now, as we all know, and we're not here to judge, but when you are legalizing, protecting, and some people think overprotective, alternative lifestyles, there may be consequences in all this. Now, we're not saying it in the English case, but it does seem to keep coming back. It is a region where people, are not very balanced or not very mature, that choose a direction to go in their lives, which maybe can be nipped in the bud, got hold of by, let me say, people like LGBT, and said, this is normal, you need protecting, you have the law now on your side. But I'm sorry, in a lot of cases, It is mental illness that needs treating.
I think, and also when you have transgendered, when you have transitioned, the number of people who go on and then take their own lives because you can't go back, and the drugs that you're on, what does that do to you? You know, the whole thing worries me completely, because I think in Bianna's case, I think she probably was a boy born into the wrong body. You know, it does happen. It does happen. And those children should be helped, but I don't think they should be helped at 4 years old, because you don't know, you know, I think there is absolutely a case where people have been born into the wrong body, but I do not believe it's in the mountainous droves of people and children that we're seeing coming through. I think for some of those, it's a fad, and for some, not all. I mean, I just worry. I really worry about it.
Yeah, it's the vast majority that are normal that are taken over by the abnormal, and people that are abnormal that have agendas and that push the ultra left-wing liberal agenda.
Well, this is the trouble, isn't it? You see, I mean, there was who was it came out the other day talking about, who was it? Was it Grant Shapps? Somebody was saying about the woke leftness. And I think it was Grant Shapps. He did an article in the Telegraph, and I thought, wow, you're brave to put your head above the parapet. And he was going on about how the woke attitudes in Britain is ruining it. Yes, it is.
Well, I mean, he's taken a stand, a peculiar stand on the army, of course, particularly.
Yes.
But a month prior to this date, or yesterday when he came out and said it, he's not having any more, he was actually saying that he's in favour of all these other things that are going on. I mean, do they know? Talk about steer karma being flip-flop. They're all the same.
I was just going to start on that one as well, about the mess that is Rochdale now. I mean, he said that he's rid anti-Semitism of his party. No, he hasn't. No, he hasn't. And I mean, what a mess this is. I mean, Labour are not supporting that guy now. So, but he's still standing for Labour. So what happens next then? I don't understand.
Well, he'll come out as an independent. He can't.
Oh, I see.
Because
okay.
He's been rejected. But who's going to take advantage of this? Well, there are about 15, 16 of other potential MPs standing. I'd vote, I'm sorry, for the monster raving loony party. You stand a better chance.
Do we really want George Galloway? Do we really?
Well, he's an opportunist. George has been.
Absolutely.
At least you know where you are with him.
Simon Danshrop's another one.
Where do we know where we are with Rochdale? Well, we do. For 2 or even 2.5 decades, it's been a cesspit.
It is.
And nothing's done about it because we are afraid, the police included, of the Islamic vote and Islamic presence. And let me tell you, it's not just Rochdale. I can quote 12 cities in the north of England that are controlled, inverted commas, by an Islamic persuasion.
Absolutely right. And they're on the councils and they, pull the strings. It's no different in Rotherham. It's no different in Newcastle up in the northeast. It's no different in Liverpool. It's everywhere across the country. It has never, ever been sorted. And that
Halifax is here and now in various towns and cities.
It is. And that, when you've got a leader of the council, people on the council who are of that persuasion, that they are probably just as corrupt themselves, as are some of the police. And the high, the very lovely, there was a story, I was reading one about, it was about 24 hours in custody, and it was about the police up north, with this guy who was the ringleader, a Pakistani guy who had a most amazing restaurant, and he was driving around in Ferraris. Hello, you don't make that money, do you, out of a restaurant? It just stinks. And nobody wants to go near them because those people make sure brutal things happen to people who are whinging.
Yes, or you're called a racist, which is even worse.
Yeah.
No, we are in a pickle, Marilyn, and it's not surprise. Do you know, looking at all the major parties and some of the second line parties in Britain, there's only Reform that's had the courage to poke their head above the proverbial and say the facts. Everybody else is acquiescing, frightened, and daren't put their head above the parapet.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And I mean, I really don't know who I would vote for at the moment. There isn't a leader among them. And the trouble is with reform, if you vote for them, they're not going to get enough seats to run the country, are they?
Well,
Maybe
we're
they
back
could
to
have
PR, aren't we? That's the only answer.
exactly. And then, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So it is a real mess. I mean, when I was babysitting with my children last night, we finally managed to get mummy and daddy to go skiing for 4 days. It's the first time they've ever left their children. So granny and nana are on it. And there we were in the hallway talking last night about, children and all of this. And we were having this very in-depth conversation in the hall before I left about the lack of spirituality in this country that is what the root is of so much stuff here. And this other granny, she does a lot of work in Africa, and her job is putting in freshwater pipelines across the country so they all link up. Fascinating job, much, much needed. And we were talking about, I said, when I go into schools and I look at the feral behavior, the lack of respect for the opportunities that they have here, living here in Britain, and their education. And yet you have children in Africa who go early in the morning to a watering hole to pick up dirty water. Then they walk to school in clean clothes and they are happy. They want to learn. They have a smiley face. And she said she spends more time in Africa than she does in England. And she said, it's absolutely true. The children are delightful. All right, yes, the country's got corruption, but so have we. But she said there is a real respect and regard for teachers, education, health. And I would love to ship a whole load of kids over and say, get on with it. Walk around with no shoes on. Stop your whinging. I mean, it drives me mad, but the African countries have a very strong faith, don't they? They're very, very, glory, glory, hallelujah sort of thing. They're they display their faith, they rejoice their faith.
Well,
they show it in their lives. And we have lost that here.
Yeah, it's called practical Christianity.
It is, but there's no leadership here.
No, well, there is, but it's not
leadership.
It's going off woke, as we keep saying. Let me tell you something that this will lead on to, and I call it toilet roll syndrome. And basically what that is that we're content to get the softest tissue paper, especially if it's advertised by a puppy. And we go into raptures about things like this. You look for toilet papers in most of Africa because that's the reality. We've got our standard. Everything is so warped.
Yes.
And we've lost the plot. Let me tell you something, which may sound a bit strange, but having thought about this and having witnessed it both in Britain and now in Spain with a vengeance, can I make a recommendation that you don't go shopping between about 4 and 5 in an afternoon? Now, why say that? Well, it's coming home time from school. That's about average in Spain and the United Kingdom. If you go into a supermercado over here, you'll be looking for a car parking space. Not for very long, because there's a big hooter comes from the car behind, and 9 out of 10 are lady drivers. Now, let me say, ladies, don't take this the wrong way, but tell you what, in Spain, they're a special breed. I've never found it in any other country, but what are they on? I don't know. But they've got no patience at all. They will even come out of a side street, knock you in the side. You're on the main road, driving peacefully, and bang, and it's your fault. Now, as I say, I don't know what they're on, but they're on something. Now, that combined with the fact that, ladies, you're rushing to get your children from school, you daren't be late, anything can happen to them. And tension is building. Now, why? It's because you need, inverted commas, to go out to work for your lifestyle, not for your needs, your lifestyle, and your children's lifestyle. You'd love to see them on the top of that pony. You'd love to see them on special holidays. But let me tell you, the most important thing, if you can do it, some people can't, stay at home. especially in the early years. That's
Well,
when it all happens. That's when mum, the rock, the most important job in the world, girls, is to look after your family. Now, there are exceptions, but let's take the majority. If you analyse this, and accountants are starting to do it, you won't be any worse off.
no.
You'll be buying food cheaper, giving them better meals, not getting them fat for their dreaded future, having become obese at an early age. Everybody gains. It's a win-win. Then go back to work. Unfortunately, it's become the fashion, the moda, as we say in Spain.
Well, I think also, yeah, I think people are not happy anymore just accepting their lot, are they? You know, I stayed at home for 11 years. I have to say, a lot of the time I was bored witless because I thought, oh, did I do all my grades and this, that, and the other just to wipe bums and clear up vomit and regularly sitting on the doctor's surgery? But, you know, it's what you do. And I don't regret it now because now my 4 children, when I've watched them grow up, they are very stable. They are very resilient. They're, you know, accountable and all of that. But I do think the nursery schools, we had only play schools then, and only play schools or childminders where the kids just got sat in front of a video with some orange squash and biscuits, which is no good. But the nursery schools, I do think, do a really good job. But I've said to all my children, if you give your children 25% of yours and their time, quality time, when you are focused solely on them, you're not still doing your calls, you're not still doing your emails. I mean, my 2 that I babysat for last night, I mean, they're very, very busy, as lots of young people are nowadays, but they make a point. When the children come home from nursery at 5 o'clock, they have their parents' undivided attention. And Mike will come home, do that, even if he has to go back to work. And Biz is the same. And they really, really put a great input into those children. And they are beautiful children. They are empathic. They make sure that they take their children to school or nursery. They pick them up. And I think that's important as well. I've always said to my daughter with her children now at school, you know, that job really does need to be mum or dad, take them to school, pick them up, because that's the time, the moment they get in that car after school, how's your day? They will tell you. But anybody else, they won't tell. So you don't find out if they've been bullied. You don't find out who the naughty person was in class, you know. It's not an easy job. It's an incredibly difficult job, but it's the most worthwhile one if you want to, like evolution, bring decent people into this world. But, you know, they're not currency to get yourself a council flat.
Exactly. So let's stick with the under 5s. We've got some interesting stats coming out this week and issues. It's come out that we are practically, well, 3rd from bottom, apparently, of the list of children under 5 suffering from increasing health issues. And it's been coming on for several years, but we are now right at the bottom. And of course, the usual excuse is, oh, it's the pandemic. Well, I'm sorry, the pandemic was worldwide, wasn't it? No, that can't be that. It's this, that, and the other. Let me give a pointer here. Why has it happened in Britain and in other countries, but mainly Britain? Dare I say the forbidden word of immigration? We have different standards with great respect to many of the immigrants coming over here. The measles pandemic has illustrated that, and it's been illustrated with tuberculosis.
That's exactly right.
Previous years, nobody dares say it.
Well, hang on, don't forget diphtheria.
In diphtheria, indeed. Now, we're not blaming everything on immigration, but I'm afraid you've got to put it at the top of many lists. When you're talking about can't get to see your GP, can't buy a house, can't get a decent school, etc., etc. People never mention the elephant in the room.
No, they don't. They don't. Because in Kent, where there's been so many migrants going in Kent. I mean, I was involved with a lady. Well, I think you have heard of her. She runs an organisation called Are They Safe? And her child, and we fought and fought and fought with Bromley Council, and in the end, she won. But because of the spaces in the catchment schools that this little girl should have gone to for secondary school were taken up by migrants. She was told she was going to have to travel 20 miles on 3 buses every day and back in order to go to a school outside of county. Well, why can't the migrants do that? And you 11 years old with like September clocks going back in October, you're going to let your child go on 3 different buses and back again with all the issues you have with county lines and gangs and all that sort of stuff going on. We really fought and we won, and she got in the end into a very decent school. But we shouldn't have had to have done that. I should not have had to have stepped in and helped there.
No, we've got to hold up our hands and say there are many ethnic communities that are very, very positively contributing to the economy and the lifestyle, even the ethos of Great Britain, because they are joining in. But I'm afraid we're not talking about the majority who come here. And I'm not interested in people coming across the channel in one sense, because it's a microcosm of what is really happening. We're letting every student in the world coming in because we want 3 times the amount of money that they will pay that our own English, Welsh, Irish, Scottish students will pay. Well, not Scottish, they don't pay anything. There you go. But having said this, Marilyn, who is organising it? Who's behind it? Well, our mandarins in the civil service, and we've not got the quality politician to say enough. We've not got the proverbial Margaret.
There's the odd one, and then they're not voted in or something. Tom Hugendart, I like him. I do think he's great, and I think he should be in a strong position because of his military background. I actually think Kemi Badenoch's very good. Actually, she came here as a migrant family. She worked her way through McDonald's and all of that when she was young, and she's an amazing lady. And she takes no issue. She doesn't take any problem. She deals with stuff. That's what you need. I mean,
well, you can say it about Rishi, for goodness sake. How many other people have got an Indian as prime minister now? Some people say, well, we get what we deserve. Well, that's a political point of view. But I mean, it's as long as the opportunities are clearly open. That's what I want to see. I want to see merit and openness. I don't want to see people coming in, bringing all the families with them, who will be a double burden on the state as time goes by.
You say, who's going to be, because now we've got this housing crisis, and I think some of the early years thing as well could well be the appalling accommodation that some people are having to live in. The mold is just dreadful. And we had the sad case only a year or so ago, didn't we? The little 4-year-old that died because of the mold. And it's true, it's dreadful. I mean, we lived in a moldy house in Portugal when we first moved there. Oh, I didn't stop coughing for the first 6 months until we moved.
It's a killer.
It is a killer. It is a killer. And the spores get right into your system. I was never well the first 6 months. And when we went away for a weekend and we came back and 1 bedroom wall was totally black after 3 days of being away. And it's those sort of conditions. Some of the housing conditions are absolutely appalling. And that is, I think, also contributing a lot to the early years illnesses. I really do. And landlords and councils that don't step up and become accountable.
Right. Let's move on to another accountability issue, if you wish, and that's the care homes. And it's a complex problem. But children are put into care homes as supposedly the last resort. And the care homes are now getting picky. If you have a child with complex problems, you try and get that child in a care home. The reason is that they're frightened of Ofsted coming round, seeing half a dozen of their many children as not copable with. they can't do anything with them, and therefore that care home will be marked down. So you try and get in a care home with a complex problem.
But I do feel sorry for some. I mean, I've been to some very, very good care homes. I mean, really well run, but are they really there for the complex problems? I mean, that's a specific expertise. So I would be, if I was coping with children with behavior problems, that, you know, where you can turn them around and put them back somewhere where they can. This is a bit like the pupil referral units, isn't it? The idea is that you get them straight again and you send them back into mainstream schools. And if it's that sort of care home, it's very difficult to deal with a child with complex needs. Is a specific expertise, and they should be put in a special school for that, not, you know, a special, if you like, boarding school situation where they are in-house and they're dealt with, because I'm not sure that a residential care home is really experienced enough to actually handle those children. So where do they go? As you say, where do they go?
Moving on, we're going to go back to a couple of articles back, and that is the announcement. There's two issues here about dentists to work, which it means, guys and gals, if you work Saturday mornings as a dentist, you will now get £20,000 from the state to take on more people. And the trial is started rolling out in Bristol, and GB News were there to see the crowds of people signing up for this down the road. Can I say, and don't get me as racist again, these are facts, people. More than half the people in that queue were of ethnic origin. Good, they've got more sense. They want to get their teeth sorted out. But it also illustrates the paucity of a morality that has to pay £20,000 to get a dentist up on a Saturday morning. He'd probably earn more than that, actually, if he opened on a Saturday and ran that Saturday as a private practice. But there again.
Yeah, I think the dentists are a law unto themselves, quite honestly. They don't seem to have any sort of overview or of like a bandwidth of charging and all of that, because my stepdaughter-in-law is a hygienist, and she said that you try getting in an NHS dentist. And I said to her, well, we've got an NHS, but we haven't been for a sort of a couple of years. Oh, she said, I bet you've been deregistered now. I said, what? She said, what they're doing, if you haven't made appointments, they just scratch your name off and then you have to start again. But you have to pay about £50 to be registered. How many people have got that money? And I mean, once you've registered, you then have to pay £50 for your first appointment. And of course, the trouble is your teeth, your oral health is so important. It does cause all sorts of problems with your liver, you know, your blood system, oral health is vital, because it does kick off into other areas of the body. And she said they've got people going in there that sometimes are taking out their own teeth because they can't get to a dentist. I mean, it's again, but they charge a lot of money. They really do. And it's dreadful, really. Somebody really needs to take the dentistry bit apart, quite frankly. I mean, it's shocking, because you're going to come through 10 years down the track, you're going to have a whole load of children with illnesses that go down to them having rotten teeth.
Yeah, I've got a clip for you. How about that then, to see what is happening this time in the United States? And I'm going to play this clip and ask for your comments. The key word here is shoplifting. Well, we know about shoplifting, and about you, we know that you just, dare I say it, ladies and gentlemen, she's been done for speeding, and she has committed the ultimate sin of 10% above the speed limit in a 30-mile-an-hour area. And I believe in UK you've got a choice now between getting 6 points or whatever on your license, coughing up the money, or going on a course. And you elected for a course.
I did. It still cost me £90. So, but we were 2.5 hours, and I thought, oh God, 2.5 hours sat in front of it. But the lady that did it there's about 8 of us on the course, and it was incredible when you look at the videos of just by going 1 mile over the limit, how much longer it takes for your car. So you're a mile over the limit, but you put your brakes on, but you're still traveling at 8 miles an hour. Whereas if you're on the limit, you can brake in time. It's amazing that motorways are the safest roads to drive on, and the most deaths and bad accidents happen on urban roads because there's so much, isn't there, coming out sideways, and bus stops and sweet shops and all of that, and schools and hospitals. But it was interesting because I was going to raise that just now, actually, that even if you put your foot down and you go at 20 miles an hour over the limit, you only arrive 6 seconds earlier. And the damage that you could have wreaked in that time by going over the limit. And I actually learned a lot, to be honest. I was surprised. And I think it was more beneficial than just saying, oh, I'll have points on my license, because you don't learn from that. You know, it was quite interesting, a good refresher of, you know, what is a dual carriageway? What is still a single carriageway, even if it's only 3 lanes? And it's all to do with the central barrier. If you don't have a central barrier, the rules of single roads, single carriageway apply. And she said there's no such thing as the fast lane. You know, it could be the overtaking lane, not the, you know, but she also, even when you're on the motorways and you see, like, you know, those lights up above that say 50 or whatever, even if you've only got one sign that says 50 on one of the lanes, but not on the others, that lasts right across all 4 lanes. You can't say, oh, well, it didn't have a light on mine. You know, it was actually really interesting, and the damage that it can do and does do, and being more aware. And it was very interesting because this is what you commenting on what you were saying. The most common cause of stress when driving is the fear of being late. So then we talked about, well, what are you being late for? And then we were like, well, you know, GP appointments, schools, stuff like that, you know. So what should you do? Well, of course, you allow more time if you can, don't you? Because, you know, now I thought as well, if you went on the naughty chair, if you were caught again 6 months later, no, you can't be caught for 3 years. If you go on the naughty chair and you've said, well, I'll pay me £90, if you were caught again 6 months' time, you can't go on the naughty chair again. You have to take the points. And that's
right.
That's for 3 years. And I actually did find it beneficial, and it was a good refresher, given how many years ago I took my driving test, and the highway code has changed since then, like about, you know, speed limits and
yeah, no, having started this conversation off, we've not seen the clip yet. We will, but I've let her go and have a mini rant because I approve of what she's saying. Only because actually about nearly 20 years ago, both Norma and I were walking on a road and we got knocked down by a lady that should never have been driving, Alzheimer's problems. Who do you blame? Well, you blame the GP, don't you, that knew about this, perhaps. And we are now, the older one gets, suffering from that. And it was only 20 mile an hour. But the difference between being knocked over than crashing into another car, because there's all sorts of defensive things in modern cars that really protect you against serious damage. When you're hit even by a ton of metal, sometimes by 2 tons of metal at 20 mile an hour, you are lucky to survive.
Yes.
Few survive when it's higher speeds than that. And we are still in recovery, or the other way around. So we are very conscious of how important it is one gets fed up with the authorities that deliberately put cameras on straight dual carriageways, 30 miles an hour when they should be 60 miles an hour. And they're only doing it for one reason, and that's to collect money. That's to collect fines.
Yes.
That gets people's goats.
Yes, it does.
In a confined area to do 30 miles an hour, sometimes in a street full of shops and people dashing across the roads, is dangerous.
It is. It is, and I have to say, when I'm in those sort of situations, I will even drop down to 20 or less, because you're so busy watching what's going on. You know, you do, and a lot of, you know, they were saying about being more observant, looking at the surrounding scene and assessing it, which I think that comes with years and years of experience driving, does it? I mean, and the reason I was caught, because we all had to sort of confess our sins at the start and say what we'd done and why. And I said, well, I had come back from urgent babysitting that night, and the weather was horrendous. It was lashing down, high winds, and I thought, I won't go down the normal way, which is the shortcut, because in this weather, trees could come down. So I thought I'd go down another road, and I didn't know there was a speed camera there. I didn't see it. And the rain was lashing. There were no street lights at all. So I thought I'm safe to be doing 34 miles an hour, because I'd just come off. But then they were saying, well, sometimes when you have these like turn-offs, the first, say, 100, 200 yards is 30 miles the limit. So even though there's not the street lights, because they were saying about how having street lights is your clue, that, you know, that this should be a 30 limits. So, and it was interesting though. I mean, I learnt a lot, which I wouldn't have learnt had I decided to take in the points. So in a way, it's almost worth saying to people that you should have, everyone should go on a course.
Well, yes. I mean, finally on this issue, before we see this clip, it's worth waiting for, is to say that Spain, our past masters, they get so much money off these traffic cameras. I mean, you're talking 12, 15, 20 million pounds a year they're making off one camera. And we know each camera, how much it takes. And when just down the road from here, there is a real nasty bend on the seashore where the road forms parallel to the wiggly waggly seashore. And the amount of HGVs that just tip over because they come around the bend and kill people. And where's the camera? Yeah. No. Well, the camera is about half a mile away when the road turns to straight inland as a die. And people think, oh, rap, put my foot down. And they're picked up immediately. I object to that. Absolutely. That is wrong. And it puts the police in the wrong light with the public as well. It's worth waiting for. Here it is. And what the link is here is shoplifting. Because if you do 10% above the speed limit, which is what I was going to say, then you get the book thrown at you. If you're a shoplifter in Great Britain, and now in other countries, you get let off or conditionally discharged, or anything. They don't want to put you in jail. There's no room for you, and you get off. But there is hope, everybody. This is in America, and this is what local shopkeepers do.
Ooh. God damn. Ain't nothing you can do there. There's nothing you can do, man, until you call police. Ain't nothing you can do, man, until police come in. Hey, don't. Hey, ain't nothing you can do, man. Don't do that. Don't do that, man. Don't do that.
Okay, brother. Okay.
Whooping his ass down. That's called whooping your ass. That's called whooping your ass.
Now, can you sympathise with the shopkeeper there? I mean, he's got a cane in his hand,
Absolutely.
Probably made out of bamboo. There's no intention of killing the guy, although perhaps one could forgive him. I mean, it was so blatant. Just
I mean, if it wasn't sort of like, it's actually quite funny that anybody could be that blatant. Yeah. But I don't blame him. Why should he? Why should he not deal with it? He's bought all that stuff for his shop. It teaches someone a lesson than anybody else that's in there. Why not? As you say, he's whacking him around the legs, probably, disabled him for a bit. But why not? Because over here, this is the thing. if the people that run the law and the policing in this country don't do their job right, people will take the law into their own hands. So why shouldn't the corner shop person do something like that? But the trouble is, in this country, so many people have got guns that if you do react, you're going to get shot. But shoplifters now in this country just go bye-bye, don't do it again. And it's a shocking example to the younger generation, because everybody knows they're not going to get, nothing's going to happen, and it's an absolute disgrace.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't blame him. I really don't blame him. I mean,
well, it's spreading because the vigilantes are out there. Can I say, in Britain, official, inverted commas, vigilantes, because they've decided to make citizens arrests, and they take each individual shoplifter to the local bench, and they prosecute them. Now, why can't the police do that? Because they are doing other things, usually behind desks. And I see a two-tier system coming here between public police and private police. And maybe this is one of the answers to solve problems.
But what happens then? So you're going to do a citizen's arrest, and you're going to take him, sit him on a bench, and then what's going to happen?
Well, what's going to happen is the judge hopefully will come along and give her just desserts.
Oh, right. So he still goes to court?
Oh, yes.
Oh, it still goes to court, right? Okay. Yeah, well, I think that makes sense. I do. I mean, I do think that makes sense, because the shopkeepers have got to be looked after, because I mean, there's so many attacks. You go in now, you've got a lot of, I mean, our Tesco's, Aldi and all of that, they do have proper security guards in. It's not just someone walking around, in plain clothes. They've got the padded jackets and everything they're walking around in. So it really is a problem but I haven't actually seen it where people have been abusive at the till. I haven't seen it, thank goodness, but it must go on, because you wouldn't have these people in stores strutting around and signs up everywhere. It's dreadful. The society has become so angry, so aggressive. It's just awful. It really is awful.
Well, Madagascar has got an answer. We're not talking about shoplifting. We're talking about something a smidgen more serious: paedophiles. They've just announced a law about to be put through, is that you will be castrated if you are caught paedophiling.
And it won't
two
work.
types of castration. One is chemical, and one is actual. Now, they favour the actual.
Doesn't
it work?
No, it doesn't work. It will only work in the very, very few cases, and I mean incredibly few. Number one, these people are very plausible. They're manipulative. What they will do if they are castrated, chemically or the other way, they will use, you can't switch the brain off. That's where the fantasy sits. The fantasy runs like a video through their brain. You can't switch that off. And so if their private member doesn't work, they will use more aggressive ways of abusing a child. They will use bottle ends, they'll use the end of knives, not the sharp end, but the other end, whatever, and sometimes even the sharp end. They will use their fingers. They've still got digits that they can stick into a child. You've only got to contact the Association of the Treatment of Sex Abusers in America. You can read their documents. It's called ATSA, ATSA. You can read their documents on how little difference castration makes. It's an absolute fallacy. It really is. And it's the same with these lie detectors, that if you are so wired into paedophilia, etc., where you're so used to making up lies, believing your fantasies, etc., believing that you're not this person at all, you can override them, the polygraph tests. So I mean, as soon as I saw that, I thought, well, why don't you do your homework? Because it isn't going to work.
Interesting. Listen, we're coming to the end of our time. We've got to get a few more things in. One is one of our favourite topics, of course, is where institutions gain preeminence because they are institutions. Mental health hospitals under NHS governance is a particular one that is open for abuse.
Yes.
And the number, Marilyn, of rapes, abuse, groomings that go on is exponentially upwards. And what is being done about it? Not a lot, because you've got some liberal judges there saying, oh, golly, what do we do with these people? Do we send them away for life, a long time, or do we try and rehabilitate them? Let's give them a short, sharp shock for 6 months, would you believe, and even less, and then send them on courses which they don't attend. What is going on?
You can't. Anyone in a mental health institute is extremely vulnerable. In a hospital, you're vulnerable. In a mental health unit, you're ultimately vulnerable. And who likes to work with vulnerable people? Jesus. So we need better recruitment, don't we? We need better monitoring. It's shocking. It came as no surprise to me. I mean, one of these mental health patients, I mean, the person made her pregnant. It was a member of staff. And you will get mental health patients abusing other mental health patients. I mean, whoever thought it was a great idea to put mixed genders in the same ward? I mean, it's appalling.
Well,
I mean,
as we said last week, the week before last, 2011 rather, you've had a law passed, no more mixed wards, and it still goes on in the vast majority of hospitals.
I know, it is absolutely outrageous. I mean, everybody needs a safe space. I mean, and in mental health hospitals as well, it's even worse. Some of those, I mean, given that 80% of poor mental health goes down to abuse as a child, then that's a high proportion of patients who are in there because their mental health issues and their anxiety and their trauma from those abuses in childhood have not been managed. And so it builds up, and then it falls off the shelf. So those people are incredibly hyper about those sort of situations. I mean, you do wonder, do these so-called experts, do they actually really understand what's going on? Do they really, or are they just another bunch of do-gooders? Oh, you know what? It'll sort itself out. It'll be like Colin Pitchfork, who has been given a second chance. You know, I put a thing out on X yesterday to say someone's living now who won't be living when he finally comes out. If he comes out, he should never be allowed out. Another bunch of do-gooders. That man cannot change, not at this stage in his life. Nothing is going to change him.
Well, they
because
listen
that
to
wiring in the brain and the landscape.
Exactly. They listen to one man who has befriended him in prison,
really?
giving him a good report. Oh, he's changed. Oh, we'll take a couple of years off the sentence. It's madness.
They're gullible. See, this is the trouble. When I've gone into prisons and I've spoken to these people, and they will laugh and say, so what's your mental health? What's your reparation like, if you like, your rehabilitation? And they laugh and they say, well, because of all the cutbacks and all of that, we don't get the high quality counsellors anymore, the therapy. We get some of the rookie ones, and we know exactly what they want to hear. So we tell them what they want to hear, and then we buy Bibles and we, make out, they go to before they know. I mean, I know several chaplains who have said to me, we always know when there's a parole board due because we had to buy a whole load of Bibles and you can't get into the chapel on a Sunday. People are so dim. Again, it's another, who was it? Was it Lord Longford that thought that Myra Henley? Do you remember how he thought she was goodness sake. And he thought she was over her problems. Well, you don't have any temptation when you're inside, do you? So how can you know that that person's cured and they haven't literally deceived you because they're so clever at duplicity?
We've got to go, but can I leave the viewers with one thought and with ourselves with one thought? I'm making no comments about this because we don't know. But we do know that 4 young lads aged between 12 and 14 in Rochdale have been caught allegedly raping a young girl.
Yeah.
Now, are we going to know the background of the story before the elections or not? Or is it being deliberately hidden under the carpet?
Well, it will be. We won't know because we were told they're minors and we won't be able to know who they are. But if they are, I suggest their backgrounds, yes, but also what is incredibly influencing is the number of children that are dosing out on pornography. It becomes normalized, then they want to practice it. And I suspect, I wouldn't mind betting that, yes, some of it is a lot to do with their background, but I bet you anything they've been watching pornography. And that sort of the rape, that's what you see. That's what you see on every single video of pornography. You see gagging, spanking, oral, anal sex, rape, humiliation, throttling. It's terrible.
Can I urge, therefore, the people, the good people of Rochdale, that are still numerically more than any other partitioned part of that city, town, to rise up and vote on, dare I say, moral grounds.
Yes, yes, yes. Because you know what? This gets me about all the marches we're having about the Palestinians and all of that. Why don't people who object to children not being protected in this country, why don't they all march into London and wave their banners and everything? Everybody's so complacent. They just take it on the chin.
Marilyn, what worries me about all this, whether you're a supporter, that's the wrong way of putting it, of Israel, or a supporter of Hamas, which is or seems to be the vast majority of the media, and the local Joe, I don't believe the local Joe, you can't say that anymore, but I'll still say it. All right, the local Joanna, if you don't like that. Basically, you've got these people thinking, hooray, at last, what is going on with this lot? Look at the real evidence. Who are the groups that are causing the problems, even in the United Kingdom? It's the Palestinian protestations. And now the doctors who are on strike, again, very shortly, some people go as far as say allowing people to die. I'm one of them, because that is what actually happened.
That is what will
and
happen.
They are now part of the pro-Palestinian marches and are taking babies, not real ones, doll babies, pouring blood over them and showing horrendous injuries, and are going and being part of the march. Now, sit back, folks. Who should you be supporting? Who should you be believing? Now, I'm not coercing people to be pro-Jewish, pro-Hamas, or anything, but just sit back and think, work things out. Do you really support the clowns that are throwing paint over the Mona Lisa? Because it's all part of the same trendy, lefty, liberal group.
Also, it's part of the same mindset. I want to leave you with one thought as well that I forgot to say, is this is completely different, but it is about the NHS, and we go on about the waiting lists, but there's something that hides under the radar here that no one mentions. Roger, as you know, has gone privately with his heart stuff, but we had a letter the other day. Finally, he'd come through the NHS system after 15 months. He'd have been dead by now if he'd waited, right? 15 months. And they said, please say whether you can come or not, because we get 17,000 no-show appointments every year. Now, that is just one cardiology department. So how many, are there enough no-shows that would clear that list, that waiting list? 17,000 no-shows in one cardiology department.
But we have a commandment, the 11th commandment, and it states free at the point of service. It's not appreciated.
No, it's not. Any more than education is. So
there you go.
On that happy note,
yeah.
Have a good week.
Yes, you're bound to have a good week. After all the misery we have caused, it can only get better.
Only get better. Take care. Bye, bye, bye.